Hi everyone, and I'd like to welcome you to my very first episode, episode 1 of Karen Knits. A little bit about myself. My name is Karen. I'm a Canadian who is living and working in the United States. My husband John and I live in South Central Pennsylvania, where we're right close to the border of Maryland. Just a little note, I'm really excited to be doing this, and I'm also kind of nervous and feeling really awkward about sitting here in a room all by myself talking to a camera. If you're hearing weird noises out in the background or any kind of ambient noises, our apartment is right on a main drag through town, so you're probably going to hear some traffic. It's an old apartment building and we have not the best soundproofing in the building, so you probably will hear some traffic here and there during the podcast. So today is Saturday, September 15th, 2018. While I'm taping this, we'll see what day I actually get this finished with the editing and get it actually posted onto YouTube. So that I said that already. Okay, so what this podcast is going to be about, I've called it Karen Knits. It will be the vast majority of what I will be focusing on during this podcast will be knitting. Here's a nice awkward silence. So the podcast will be primarily about knitting. It'll also have some focus on spinning, which is something I'm just starting to wade into that swamp. In another podcast I will show you I have my great-grandmother's antique spinning wheel. If I can figure out the editing trick, I will add in a picture of it here, but I will spend some time in an upcoming video where I will actually videotape and show you a lot of the detail on the spinning wheel. My great-grandmother brought it to Canada from Iceland when she immigrated there in 1905. So it is an antique spinning wheel. It has all of its parts. It is something that it is usable, and I do plan to learn how to spin so that I can use the same spinning wheel that my great-grandmother used many, many years ago and used for hours and hours and hours of use. So anyways, that was a little bit of a tangent there, sorry. So the podcast will be primarily about knitting. I will talk a little bit about spinning as I'm learning how to spin. I will also be spending some time in this podcast talking about dyeing yarn, which is another hobby I really enjoy. I have had in the past a little bit of yarn available for sale on Etsy. I don't think there's anything in the shop right now, but it is something that maybe down the road I might try to sell a little bit more as an indie dyer. We'll see how that goes, and if time permits. I also do a fair bit of knit designing. On Ravelry you can find me as Karen Burr Designs. You can also find me on Ravelry as Econ Nerd, which is my everyday username, but my designer page is Karen Burr Designs. I design mostly socks and cowls. I've designed a few other accessories, but primarily it is socks and cowls, which are a lot of what I do knit. My favorite things to knit are socks. I've knit between the ones I've designed and other people's patterns that I've knit over 100 pair of socks now, probably in the last, I'll have to check the date on that. I don't remember when I actually first started. It's probably been about 5-6 years that I've been knitting socks now, give or take a couple years, but I'll double check that on Ravelry later and see exactly when it was that I knit my very first pair of socks. So anyway, so I also plan on doing a little bit of podcasting about crochet. I learned to crochet before I learned to knit. I learned to do both when I was in my teens. I primarily crocheted through my 20s and 30s, and in the last maybe 10, 15 years or so, I've kind of been transitioning over to where now I mostly knit. I do a little bit of crochet, mostly for charity pet blankets that I donate to Humane Society and other pet shelters. I'll probably talk about that in a future podcast as well and show you some of the ones I've done. Work through what pattern I use for them. It's a very simple pattern. I also hope to be spending some time talking about sewing. I used to sew a lot when I was younger. I haven't done a lot lately, but it is something I really do want to. I want to shake the dust off my sewing machine, give it a go over, get it cleaned up, tuned up, and do some more sewing. It's something I really enjoy. I'd like to start dabbling in quilting, probably not the big full-size quilts, but smaller ones. I have sewn one small table runner, so I've done, or quilted, sorry, one small table runner, but it is something I'd like to dabble with a little bit more. And I'd also like to spend some time looking at making some project bags. You'll see in a little bit my when we go through my works in progress, we'll see the my project. I don't have project bags, and it's something that I think it might be kind of fun to have. We'll see if that's somewhere where I go. I'm also very interested in doing different art things. I'm not necessarily that good at it, but it's something that I enjoy. It is pleasant, it's stress relieving, it's something, it's fun, I like it. I do a lot of work with mixed media. I've worked with acrylics, watercolors. I've done a fair bit with art journaling, some Bible journaling. It's just a fun pastime that I just enjoy. It kind of comes and goes. A few of these type of things might make some small appearances in this podcast, but as I said, primarily it's going to be knitting related, with some crochet thrown in there, and probably a little bit of sewing as I start to progress with that a little bit more. Let me just check. Sorry, let me check my notes. I will be posting. Speaking of notes, I will be posting some show notes down below later on once I get this done. I'll have links to the different projects I talk about and the different yarns I talk about. Any of my social media information I will post again down below as well. So now that we've gone through this long drawn out kind of introduction, basically what my podcasts, what I envision them to be is it's just gonna be something very informal. I'm expecting this is going to be a pile of fun, but sit back, have a cup of tea. This is a cup that I bought at Christmas tree shops quite a while ago. Absolutely love this cup. So either a cup of tea, I'm primarily a tea drinker, but have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, whatever other beverage you might enjoy. Sit back, enjoy. I appreciate that you're taking a chance on coming to sit down and watch this brand new podcast. But typically what I want to do in my podcasts, so I'll spend a little bit of time looking at projects that I've finished. So whatever I finished since the previous episode. There will be some times when, if I'm looking for some filler, I might bring in some of my some of the objects I've finished objects I've had in the past, some of my designs that I've had. I'll probably show off some of those as well. Once I've talked about any finished objects I might have, I want to spend some time looking at what I've worked on in the past week or two since I've podcast last time. So any of my new work in progress. This week what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all of my works in progress. Don't worry, typically I don't have a lot of works in progress going at one time. I find that for me it's stressful, and I do find that I kind of pick one project and one or two, and I focus on that. If I have too many things that I've cast on all at once, I really do find that several of them just kind of sit to the side and they don't get the love they deserve. So I do tend to only work on a few things at any given time. And then if I have any let me try that one again. If I have any new stash acquisition, that was tough to spit out. Anyway, if I have new stash, I will show that off. I typically don't buy a whole lot of yarn, although this week and coming up might not be evidence of that, but I have a lot of stash already, and that's excuse me, that is something that I do want to I want to spend a bit of time. In one of my podcasts, I will go on a tour through my stash and show you what I have and what I'm working on, and maybe think about some of the things that I want to do with that yarn in the future. And then I might have a section at the end where I just talk about random stuff that's just going on in life. I potentially will be throwing in a few little bits and pieces with some of the art side of it as well. I'll also throw in any things that do with spinning, dyeing yarn, any of my sewing crafts that if I'm doing any sewing or crocheting, I'll fit that in with the either finished objects or works in progress. So I want to first off show you, since this is a brand new podcast, there's nothing, you aren't familiar with any of the projects I've been working on in the past and any of the things that I've finished recently, but my most recent finished object are my, I'm gonna have to work on this pronunciation. They're a pair of socks. They are the Flibbertgibbit socks. They're by Lisa K. Ross. They are the Stage 5 socks from the Tour de Sock 2018. I finished these last week, or I finished them on the 8th of September. They were in the 5th stage for Tour de Sock. If you check on Ravelry, if it's an event you're not familiar with, it's basically a knitting competition where they will issue a new pattern usually I think it's every 10 days. And there's certain point levels that are allocated for finishing the socks within a specified period of time. This time around I finished, I think, 2 pair of socks within the allocated time and actually got points for them. This pair, oops. This pair are a pair that I finished, but it was after the time period was done. And I have, you'll see in a little bit, I have one other pair of socks from Tour de Sock that I'm working on now, and I do hope to have finished within the next less than a week. Hopefully if I'm podcasting again in a week, you'll be able to see another finished project. So here are these ones, the Flibbertgibbit. So I don't think I mentioned already, I really enjoy knitting. I love knitting cables, and as we go through the finished object I have now and my ongoing projects, it'll be clearly obvious that I'm a major fan of cables. I love working with cables. But I just want to give you a little bit more of a close-up of these. They have a really cute little cable design with little lace panels in there, but they're a really pretty little design. I really enjoyed working these. I'll take this off so I can show you a little bit. They were knit top down. They have a cute little scalloped edge on them, which I thought was really pretty. It's a little bit floppy, but it's really cute. If we look down the front, the cable paneling, the cable and lace panel goes all the way down the front. I opted for just using a plain toe. The pattern repeats along the back of the sock. It has a heel flap, and instead of having the gussets coming down the side, it has what is known, I believe, known as a riverbed gusset, where the gusset decreases happen down the bottom of the heel, and the decreases are tucked in there. And it's a really neat little design. I really like the riverbed gusset, and they were a really fun knit. The yarn I used for this, forgot to mention that off the top. The yarn that I used for this is, I dyed this myself. It was a one-of-a-kind, so I don't remember how I did it, but it's a little bit tonal. It's mostly in grays and light blues, but it's a little colorway that I really enjoyed, and I'd like to maybe try to figure out if there's a way I can replicate it. It does show a little bit of the micro striping along the bottom. You can see when it's just in the plain vanilla, which is I think is a really neat colorway. I really like that one. So that's it for my finished objects this podcast. I've got a pile of other finished objects, but like I said, this is the most recent finish I've had, so I'll probably dig up a few others to show you in later podcasts. But for now, that's just one of the one I finished most recently. The other one that I'd mentioned, sorry, I'm just getting this from the side here without getting tangled up. And you'll see in just a second when I show you this. When I do my socks, I like to knit them 2 at a time, but in tandem. So what I'll do is and typically I enjoy knitting my socks top down. It is the way, the first pair of socks I made were top down, and I've just kind of stuck with that, and I'm more comfortable with that. I'm not against toe-up socks, but it's just one I've just not had nearly as much practice with that. And probably the socks I've probably made more than 85% of them have been top down. But anyway, so when I'm knitting my socks, I like doing them 2 at a time in tandem. So I'll knit the cuff on one, and then I'll move over and I'll do the cuff on the second one. Then I'll go down the leg on one, then the leg on the other, and then the heel, and I'll continue back and forth. And that way I find I don't have a problem with second sock syndrome. I finish them both at the same time. So if there's any issues I have doing the heel flap or the heel turn on one, it's still fresh in my mind when I go back and work on when I do the second one immediately afterwards. So the other pair of socks that I have one pair of socks that are on the go right now, and these ones are the other pair of socks from from Tour de Sock. And these were the stage 3 socks, and the name of the pattern is Bicycle Race, and the pattern is by Heidi Nick. The yarn I used for this is Cascade Heritage in the colorway Christmas Red. So these ones are, I'm going to get tangled up here. They are another heavily cabled pattern. I'm partway through, I finished the heel turn on both, and I'm working my way down the foot on each of them. I'm a little farther along on this sock, and this one I'm cruising along on there. So just to, I'm tangled up. There's also beads on here, which is a fun little detail. But if you see here, you can see that there's a really pretty cable pattern running all the way down the foot, or all the way down the leg and along the front of the foot on the back. And you can see, I think you can see, yeah, you can see the beads tucked in along the leg. The back is a slightly different cable design, and it continues down into the heel flap, and then the heel turn goes underneath the heel and then continues on. So with these, what was fun with this design was that once you went down, as you're working down the heel flap, you were doing increasing, the gusset increases down the back of the heel, and then once you got to the end of the heel flap, where the gussets had already been incorporated, you did the heel turn and then joined back in the, and then once you did the heel turn, you joined back in the round and down the foot you go. So I thought that was a really neat detail. It's a nice detail not having to pick up the stitches on the gusset. It's probably not my favorite task when it comes to knitting socks, but I do like the fit of a heel flap and gusset and heel turn for my own foot, my own shape of my own foot. So those are my bicycle race socks. So again, they were done in Cascade Heritage. It was a Tour de Sock pattern. Sorry about that. You probably are. I might be able to edit this out, but where we live, we are about half a mile, quarter mile, half mile down the road is the hospital. A little bit closer is the police station, and if you go about a block down the road behind us, not even a block, half a block to a block down the road, there's a fire station. So we hear a lot of sirens around here. It's not a huge town, but there's still quite a few. So that was an ambulance that just went past now. So hopefully there won't be other sirens coming along right behind it. But it's just a heads up that I hope I'm able to edit that out most of the time, but it's quite likely that you are going to hear sirens in the background when I'm taping. But that's just the way it goes. So since I had been working on two heavily cabled patterns, I decided I wanted something that was completely mindless and nice, easy stockingette design to work on. So I'm usually a day late and $1 short on getting onto all these different bandwagons. If I'm working on a certain project chances are it was really popular months and months and months ago, and everyone else has finished making them, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, that's kind of neat, and then I eventually join up on there. So there'll be designs that have thousands and thousands of patterns made, and then I come along after. There's been so many. I'm never early into the bandwagon. I come along after everybody else is finished. So probably the advantage is I get to look at any tips and tricks that other people had. So anyway, long way of telling you that I wanted something, because I've got several. I just had finished those light blue cabled socks, and I was working on these red ones. I just wanted something that was relatively straightforward, plain stockingette. I can just sit and work on it without having to put in a ton of thought. So I have finally got around to casting on the Sockhead Slouch Hat by Kelly McClure. The yarn I'm using, so this is what I have the, let's say cuff. The brim is almost complete now. So that's how far I am on it. I think I'm at about I'm a little over 3 inches now. Maybe getting closer to the 4 inches. That is the design for doing the brim. I'm using a yarn that I dyed myself, and it's a long gradient. I thought this would be perfect for this hat. So it started with this darker blue, and then it's going to transition into gradually lighter and lighter and lighter shades of blue. So I think I might not have the transition the best from this shade to the next one, but when I post again next week, you'll get to see how much more I've done in this, and then I should have the transition into the next color. So that's my second work in progress I have going. Let me just pop that over there. Another pattern I started, and I just started the I just started that pattern just about a week ago, the 9th of September. So that's a fairly recent project I started working on. Another work in progress I have, and this one I haven't worked on much at all lately. Because it was warm in the summertime, and it will be a nice big heavily cabled cardigan once it's finally finished. But I cast it on back in the 3rd of February. So I cast this on a while ago, and I honestly don't think I've done anything on it in probably about 4 months. What it is the Row Cardigan by Michelle Wong. And I'm knitting it in, and this is just, oh, the cables. I love all the cables in here. As I said, I enjoy working with cables. And this, I'm almost done. This is the back. I'm almost finished the back. I probably only have like an inch or two. I think I'm almost at the point where I'm ready to do the shoulder shaping. So it's very close to having the back finished. But now that we're getting into September, we're getting closer to fall, I really do want to get back to working on this some more. I really do want to get this finished, so once it does start getting a lot cold, well, it doesn't get that, I'm a Canadian, so the cold in Pennsylvania, I don't think it's that cold, but this cardigan will be fantastic for wearing in December, January, February, and we've got the coldest months here. So this is one that I'm hoping I can show you some more progress on this fairly soon. I really want to finish my bicycle race socks first. That's my highest priority because that's the one that's closest to completion. But then I really do want to get this back into my rotation and really start working on this a lot more. Oh yeah, the yarn I'm using for this, I'm using Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Superwash, and it's bare. So it's just in the off-white color. I might dye it as a whole finished, when it's entirely finished, I might dye the whole thing, but I really do suspect that I'm going to leave it bare. I do like this color. I think it's nice, and it's just a nice light neutral. So when I was talking before about wanting to make project bags, this lives in my handy dandy Rubbermaid type tote. Actually, this is a Sterilite tote. A lot of my projects, I keep them in here, but I kind of like that because I can stack them up nice and neatly, and I can see what's in there. Even though I love the project bags, they're so pretty, but I can see what's in here easily, and it reminds me that it sits beside me by my desk, and it reminds me that I have this project there that I need to get back to work on sometime. So that's one of my works in progress. Another work in progress I have that this one I'm actually embarrassed to say, I cast this one on July 24th, 2014. So I've been working on this for 4 years. I'm nowhere close to done. I don't know when I'll ever finish this. I do eventually want to finish it, although I'm kind of rethinking what it's going to eventually be when it is done. But it is the mitered square sock leftover sock yarn. I call it my sock scrap gan is what I've been calling it. But that's all I have. It's not very big. It's nowhere close to blanket. If I'm holding this up from, I'm nowhere close. I'm almost thinking what I might do with it is go a little bit wider than this and either finish it off and have it as a triangular, just like a triangular shawl. I might do that because the odds that I'll finish it before before way too much time, like another 4 years goes past, I might have a better chance of actually finishing it if I just make it into like a triangular shawl, and then I can just wear it over my shoulders when I'm sitting. This apartment gets cold in the winter time. Like I say, it's not very soundproof, and it's also a little bit drafty. It's a big old apartment. So I might just want it as something that I can just throw over my shoulders. So that might be something that I do with it. Maybe I'll just get it to a decent sized triangle or a decent sized square, then I can just fold it over and put it across my shoulders. So that's also, and it's got oodles and oodles of little leftover yarn balls from previous projects. So that's my fourth work in progress. And then, as I was mentioning with my fancy project bags, I keep things in Ziploc bags. And this is a project, and I'm kind of wondering on your advice. I've asked a few people about this before, and some of them are on the same wavelength as I am with this. This is a single sock. It's completed. The ends have not been tucked in. But the pattern is called Lambs and Chickens and Bunnies Oh My. It was from Sock Madness I didn't write down, I started in 2017. So Sock Madness 11, and this was the round 3 sock. So this, I got knocked out of the knitting competition on this design in 2017. The pattern is by Rose Clark. And I have one sock that's finished. I finished it probably in April or May 2017. I've never got around to casting on the second one. And I really don't have any motivation. I have no desire to cast on the second one. It's my color work needed some practice. The floats are too tight. There's no way that I'm going to get this on over my foot, over my heel, and then up my leg. It's not going to happen. So whether I finish a second sock and give them away to somebody, or I'm almost thinking I'll block it, tuck in the tails, and maybe I'll just use it as a piece of decoration. I'll get it into a sock blocker of some sort, and I'll just use it as art. Hang it up in my craft room here somewhere. So I'm almost leaning towards that. I think that's what I'm going to do with it. It's a half object right now. There's one sock complete, but I really don't see myself ever coming back to make the second one. So I really am. So I'd like what are your thoughts on that? Do you think I should try to finish it, do a second one, or should I get it blocked out nicely and put it on display and have it as a pretty decoration in my home? Anyway, so that's it. I have all the yarn. The yarn that I used for these were all yarns that I dyed. They're the small ones are all leftover. They're scraps from I made a full pair of socks with the rest of the yarn, and then these are just the leftovers that I was using for the colorwork portion. So I'm thinking I'll never finish these, and I think I'll do them up as as something decorative for my home, but we'll see. So I have a total of 5 works in progress. I'm itching to cast something else on, but I know if I cast on something new, something else is going to go farther down the list. So that last pair of socks I showed you, I'll never come back to them. My mitered square blanket, it's going to take me even longer to come back to it and do more on that one. So I'm really resisting the urge to cast on anything more, particularly until at least I have to finish the bicycle race socks, get those done first before I even think of casting something else on. Even though I'm itching, but I'll try to restrain myself. So those are all my works in progress. Like I said, I have a total of 5. I do find if I have too many works in progress at one time, I do find that stressful. And I do find that too many of them they just sit there patiently waiting for me to remember that they're there, and patiently waiting for me to come back and show them a bit of love again. So I usually do. You're probably not going to find me having oodles and oodles of projects on the go. Although I will be talking in a bit, there's a few projects that I really do want to get casting on. But I'm going to hold off on that. But I'll talk about that in just a little bit once I show you some of the new yarn that I've had. So another segment I want to incorporate into this podcast is to talk about any stash acquisition, any new stash that I'm bringing into my home. Whether it might be yarn, some podcasts down the road I might show other things that I've bought that I think are fun and interesting. I might show fabrics that I bought for project bag ideas, so that I'm not using that for a project bag. But those are things I might show you. But so today I want to show you, I don't normally buy, like I mentioned at the beginning, I don't normally buy a lot of stash. I have a lot already, so I don't feel the need to buy a lot of stash, a lot more yarn. Although I will admit there are quite a few times that I'd like to buy more, but I have a lot with me. I have a lot already. So I want to talk about, I have 6 skeins of yarn that I bought in the last couple days. I also have an order from Knit Picks that should be delivered on Monday or Tuesday. But I'll show you those once I get them, and I'll show you those on my next podcast. But one of the first ones I had, my husband and I stopped in, there's a little thrift store that's just down the street from us. It's just behind our apartment, just like half a block away. So we stopped in there on Thursday. Yeah, today's Saturday. On Thursday we stopped in there. We looked around, and I always go over to... Who's that? Ambulance is coming back. It's heading back to the hospital. That scared the living daylights out of me. Anyway, so the other day on Thursday we stopped in the thrift store, and as always I headed over to the craft. They have a section where they put all their craft supplies and things on there. And so they have 3 or 4 drawers in a cabinet where they keep all their yarn. So I looked, and normally it's things like the Red Heart acrylics, a lot of different baby yarns, things like that they have there. And I've never seen anything there that caught my eye, or anything that I wanted to bring home with me, or that I really was excited about, until Thursday when we went in there. So I popped open the one drawer that had all the crochet thread in it, and this was in there. I love it. Look at how loud that is. Oh my goodness. So this yarn is Wild Hair. It's from Wild Hair Fiber Studio, It's in the pinnacle fingering, and the color is called Neon Lights. So I looked online to find out a little bit more about it, and it's apparently a yarn that when you put it under black light, it glows. Like, I want that. I have to have this. I will be making these into a pair of probably vanilla socks. It'll be something that I can really show off the wild colors on here, because it's a wild variegated yarn. It is 100 grams, 460 yards. It's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And so I picked it up. So look a little closer at this. Let me show you the label. Oops, wrong way. I'm hoping you can see that. And so when I went to pay for it, I asked her how much was it. 25 cents. I got this for a quarter. It is so nice and squishy. I love it. I don't think I've ever had such a good deal on a skein of yarn, ever. So I'm really excited to give this a try. I'm really excited to get this into a pair of vanilla socks, or probably vanilla socks. So that's 25-cent gorgeous skein of yarn. So that was the one skein I bought. Then yesterday, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, yesterday I was in a Goodwill store. I enjoy looking around thrift stores. I love it. Occasionally I find something I really like there. More often than not, I like looking around there to see what they have. So I found this in my Goodwill store. Again, usually there they have the Red Heart acrylics. I have plenty of those already. I use them to make pet blankets to donate to charity for pet shelters and things. So I found a skein of opal. I've never yet had the chance to knit with opal. I've always wanted to, but it's just something I've just never had the chance to get my hands on it, or just haven't bought it yet. So 100 grams, 425 meters. It's 75% virgin wool, 25% polyamide. So it's in nice neutral colors. It's mostly in grays, beige, off-white, cream colors. So it's a nice masculine, sorry, it's in my eye. Yarn fluff in my eye. Sorry about that. It's a nice masculine color. It looks like it's been through a war zone. It's all bundled up. It's been tied up with. It's been tied. There's an elastic band wrapped around here. I'm gonna have to sit down and carefully. I'll probably put this back on my yarn onto a yarn swift. Wind it onto there so that it's. Oh, there's the end. I found the end. But then I can get it into a nice hank so that it's looking a little better. It was $2. So I really struck a gold mine the last couple days looking at in thrift stores for yarn. But anyways, I'm thinking these will probably be a pair of socks. I'll probably make them and give them to my husband. Hopefully he hasn't, if he's watching this, he's probably lost interest. He's probably lost interest by this point, and he won't be watching this anymore. I do find that the poor guy, I've knit, I think I mentioned earlier, I've knit over 100 pair of socks, and so far, I'm a very selfish sock knitter. selfish knitter in general, but especially for socks. Most of them I keep for myself. So I made him a handful of pair of socks in heavier yarns that he's just worn as house slippers. And just this past Christmas, I made him a pair of fingering weight socks. So I'm thinking maybe though this yarn, I might make him another pair of socks with that. We'll see. I'm not going to cast it on anytime soon. I've got other projects I want to finish up first. So but that's why I think I might have that earmarked for him for maybe a Christmas present or birthday present. His birthday's not till next March. So the other yarns I bought, we went yesterday. We went and stopped in at a nearby Tuesday morning store, and I found some yarns there. I found these two. It is Carlton Merino Sport or Merino Sport. It's 45% premium acrylic, 55% merino wool. They're 50 gram skeins and 148 yards. So it's in a navy blue, which is color 1, and a nice gray color, which is listed as color 3. And I think what I'm going to do with these, I signed up for the second year for Skein Gear Knits Sail Mitten Club. Last year I only made one pair of socks. See, I usually make socks. I only knit one of the mitten designs last year. But I think these, even though it's got a heavier acrylic count in it or percentage in it, I might give these a try. I know that this is probably not the most suitable yarn for color work, but I think these are going to grow up to be a pair of colorwork mittens. They're the right size, good colors for contrasting. I think it'll look fantastic. So I think that's the plan for these, is they will be a pair of, they'll go towards making one of Skein Gear Knits Sail Blue Mitten Club 2 patterns that'll be coming out. So these are two that I just bought just yesterday. And I also yesterday at Tuesday morning bought these two skeins of yarn. So this is Voyageur yarn, Tahoe. It's listed as Tahoe yarn light. It is, switching pages. It's 50 gram skeins, 107 yards each, and it's 100% wool. The colors are brown and vanilla. And again, so 100% wool, this is a little bit more, not scratchy, but it's certainly not super duper soft. It's not that bad. It's not too bad. But I think these, again, in the darker brown and the cream or vanilla color, I think these will be fantastic colorwork mittens as well, paired together. So I think these will be another one of the mittens in the Sail Blue Mitten Club this year. I don't know which one. So that'll be one of the things. I think once I've cast off or bound off the bicycle race socks, I think I'll be casting on one or the other, either these two in one of the Sail Blue Mitten patterns, or the blue and white, or the blue and gray. I might cast those on into a pair of Sail Blue Mittens. And there'll probably be things that I might set aside and give away for Christmas gifts. I haven't decided yet, or keep for myself. Haven't decided. So those are my new acquisitions. I do have an order of yarn coming in from Knit Picks. I ordered, I don't even remember now what it was. There's a pretty blue colorway that's in a mohair mix type of yarn, and several skeins of Knit Picks Stroll in the bear yarn that I'm going to dye for making different things. But what I really wanted for those is that Stephen West has a mystery shawl knit along that's starting on the 1st of October. I've bought the pattern already, so I'm just impatiently waiting for it to come up, and I think it calls for 6 different colors, plus one that's a contrasty color and a contrasty texture. So it was the one, I think, in the pattern, the one they had in there, I think, was looking at a mohair type yarn. So I think what I'll do with those is I will use the blue mohair type yarn I bought and dye the other skeins to go together with it for working on the mystery shawl. So that's why, again, I want to get some of these works in progress off the needles, because I do have that cast on. I want to start early October. I forget the exact date. I can't remember if it starts on the 1st of October or the first weekend in October. Either way, so that is something I do want to cast on. So I'll talk about that yarn that I get. I'll talk about that next week or next time I podcast. So that about concludes this very first podcast of mine. What I hope to do with these podcasts is I hope that I'm able to do this once a week. If not once a week, it'll certainly be every 2 weeks. Part of that will depend on how much spare time I have for doing this. I work full-time outside of the home, so I don't know if I mentioned this before. I work as a professor at a nearby university, and so I'm usually tied up and busy, and I'm on campus most days during the week, and I do most of my knitting in the evenings and on the weekends or spare time. Some in the morning before. I like to spend some time in the mornings before I go to work doing some knitting. Just kind of starts off the day really nice. But if my schedule permits and I've got enough progress made on my projects, then I'm hoping that I can podcast every week. So I'm not sure how long it's going to take for me to edit this. I suspect it's going to need a fair bit of editing. That's another skill I'm going to have to learn how to do, because I've never edited video clips before. So we shall see. We shall see how that works out. So I'm hoping I can get this posted later today. It's only a little bit past lunchtime right now. So it's early afternoon. It's only Eastern time. It's 12:45 right now. So I'm hoping I can get this posted up later today, maybe tomorrow. I might go through and watch this and think, oh my goodness, this is horrible. I might just scrap the whole thing and get myself another drink and sit down and talk some more. How long have I been talking? Oh my gosh, I've been on here I've been yakking for almost an hour. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, we're gonna have to edit some of this down, because I really don't think I need my podcast to be in the hour range or more. But anyway, I'm gonna sign off now. This has been a blast. I've really enjoyed doing this. I thought it would be really awkward sitting here talking to myself. I'm all by myself in the apartment, sitting in a room by myself, talking to myself to a camera. It feels weird, but it's a lot of fun. So I'm gonna sign off now. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye now.